Good morning, everyone. I was talking to someone at APAC, who I know from Boca Raton, a friend of mine, and he recently lost his father. And so he started going to shul every day to say Kaddish, something he's very unfamiliar with, going to shul on a daily basis. And he told me something very beautiful happened. The first day he walked in to say Kaddish, he obviously had trouble reading the words. And a man in the congregation who davens there every day, a retired cardiologist, came over to him, stood next to him, and helped him say the Kaddish. And every day since then, which has now been a few months, this man always stands next to him and helps him say the Kaddish. And he says, we formed this very close friendship. We're now best friends, we go to each other's homes, we become very close. He took me under his wing, so to speak. And he said, it's interesting that he's a big liberal and I'm very conservative. So we don't talk about politics, but in everything else we become very close friends. That's what a shul and what a community is really all about. And the name of this week's parsha is Vayakel. And now the word community means community, the word unity, but there's different types of communities. And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points out that there are three types of communities. He says the name of this week's parsha is Vayakel. The word Vayakel means to gather together, and the traditional word for a congregation or for a community is Kihila. I'm sure you've seen the word Kahal, such and such, congregation, such and such. A Kihila is a community. And that's derived from the word Vayakel. When you gather together a group of people, Vayakel Moshe, that's community. But he says there are two other terms for community. Many times in the Torah you find the word Eidah. Eidah is also a community. And then you also find the word for community, tzibur. A congregation could also be a tzibur, and the shliach tzibur is the chazan, he's the emissary of the tzibur. So what's the difference between the word Eidah, Kihila, and tzibur? Three types of community. So he says tzibur, the literal meaning of the word tzibur is a bundling up or a piling up of people, like a pile. He gives a great example. He says, you ever go to the kotel and someone's saying, minyan, 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 and 10 random people come together and they daven mincha, they daven shachris. So for 15 minutes or for an hour, they're a tzibur, they're a congregation. Now these 10 people don't know each other. They've never met before. One's from South Africa, one's from the United States, one's from Israel, right? But for that period of time, they're a congregation. But as soon as the minyan is over, they all go their separate ways, and that's the end of it. It was a temporary gathering of random people, and they're bound together for a very short period of time. That's one extreme. The other extreme is Eidah. He says the word Eidah comes from the word Edut, testimony. He says people who all witnessed and experienced the same things. That's what we would call a homogeneous community, where everyone was raised the same way, everyone has the same lifestyle, everyone witnesses and testifies to the same things. That's why the Jews in the desert would call it Eidah, because they all went through the Exodus from Egypt, the Revelation at Sinai, the splitting of the sea. They were a very close-knit community with shared memories and experiences. And today you can have communities like that too. Everyone in the community is homogeneous. They all went through the same life experiences, same schooling, same education, same background, same upbringing, same philosophy in life. He says, what's a kihila? A kihila has the strength of an Eidah. People are very close to each other. It's a long-term community, not a short-term community. But unlike the Eidah, where everyone's coming from the same place, they all come from different spectrums of Jewish life. And they have a very broad and diversified background. Everyone's different. But they all pool together and form a close-knit community. And because there's so many differences and diversity amongst the members, each one could lend something to someone else. The guy who knows how to read Hebrew could help the guy who can't read Hebrew. And maybe the guy who can't read Hebrew could help them with some other skills that he has that someone else doesn't have. And everyone blends together, sharing their different natural talents, resources, and diverse backgrounds to form the strongest type of a community. And it bridges everyone together. And that's why the favorite chosen name for communities is Kihila. And when you see that happen in a community, it's magical. To see people from different ages, different diverse backgrounds, upbringings, come together and become one unit, and everyone's lending to each other and helping one another is something very beautiful. And I just want to conclude with the story, true story told about a very secular, left-wing, anti-religious Jew in Israel. There are a couple of them in Israel. And he lived in Tel Aviv. And he's going home from work with his business suit, with his briefcase after a day of work. and there's a little shtibel, a little small synagogue off a side street in Tel Aviv, and there's a guy out there says, could you come in? We need a minyan. He says, no. He keeps on walking. The guy had to say Kaddish. So he runs after him. He says, listen, it's getting dark. We need a minyan for mincha. Please, I have to say Kaddish for my mother. Could you come in? No. He keeps on walking. The guy keeps on running after him, begging him. Finally, he says, okay. He gives in. He's never been in a shul in his life. He's like one of these Jews who has a barbecue on the beach in Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur. And I won't tell you what they barbecue. So he comes into the shul for a mincha. He happened to be a very good shul where people really davened with kavanah. And he's standing there, he's never been in a shul, and he sees they start saying Shemona Esrei, and people are like really praying. There's no cell phones going off. Everyone's just like deep in prayer. And something struck him. It was like, he never saw people pray like this. And it was a small little shtibel, just 9 other people, but the kavanah was so, the kedusha, the holiness, he was very, very moved. And he felt something very deep. The next day on the way home from work, he voluntarily went in. He wanted to experience it again. And every day he would go to daven mincha in the shul. He didn't know how to daven. And then when someone came and said, let me show you how to daven, and he knew how to read Hebrew, but he didn't know when to stand, when to sit. And the people in the shul started drawing him closer, and he started learning, and he started becoming closer to Yiddishkeit and coming on Shabbos. And over a period of time, he became a Baal Teshuva, a religious Jew. And one day he's sitting with his father, and his father says, I have to tell you something. He says, your grandfather, who you never met because he died when you were a little baby, was a religious Jew from Europe. And he came here and he was a very devout Jew. I became a secular Israeli. I left it all behind. I abandoned it, and I raised you as a secular Israeli. But I want you to know your grandfather was very religious, and he prayed 3 times a day. He went to shul 3 times a day. And do you know which shul he went to? He prayed in that little shul in Tel Aviv, where you went each and every day, where you were pulled into daven mincha. And I believe that the prayers of your grandfather in that little shtibel is what you felt on that day, because he was praying for his grandchildren, for his descendants. That's the power of a prayer, and that's the power of a community. And that's why the word Vayakel became the name for all Jewish communities, a kihila, where everyone accepts and embraces each other with love and unity, and then magic and beauty emerges.